Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, and I'll be bringing you candid and sometimes irreverent whiskey news, opinions, and reviews on the industry and the products they've been bringing us for hundreds of years. Today, we're diving into the art of dodging those annoying robocalls. You know, the ones where your car warranty is allegedly expiring for the 5th time this month, or they're begging you to take a poll about which idiot we should send to Congress this time around. Yeah, no, we are not doing that. But what we are doing is talking about bourbon. For the next half hour or so, you're going to get mostly my amazing commentary on bourbon and an exciting review at the end of the episode. And just a reminder, it's Cocktober, and more on that later. So we've got a lot to discuss today. So today we're going to talk about Pete Rose. I'm special. At least that's what the folks at Lux Row say. We're going to talk about Dragon Whiskey. We're going to talk about Swiss Miss getting into the liquor business. Yeah, that Swiss Miss. We're going to talk about whiskey advent calendars. I can't believe I'm going to talk about this, but we're going to talk about Traveler Whiskey. And then we're going to do a review of Chicken Cock Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. So I'm going to get right into it today, kids. There's lots of ground to cover. In my opinion, Pete Rose belongs in the Hall of Fame. And no, the pod hasn't turned into sports talk radio. You're still listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, but I've got some strong feelings about Charlie Hustle. And I want to get that off my chest first thing today. Now, we'll get to the whiskey soon enough, I promise, but baseball has always been a passion of mine, so I couldn't avoid the fact that Pete Rose, who had more major league hits than anyone in history, has died at the age of 83. Now, did Pete break the rules? Well, yeah, he did, and that's why they still won't allow him into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And what rule did he break? Well, it's called Rule 21, and the rule says that anyone, a player, an umpire, or an official who bets on a baseball game in which they have no duty, meaning that they're not directly involved in, they will be ineligible for 1 year. They'll get a 1-year punishment. Anyone who bets on a game in which they have a duty, meaning involved in the game, they'll be permanently ineligible. Now, I've kind of distilled that down. It's a little bit more legal jargon than what I've told you there, but those are the two basic parts of Rule 21. Now, keep in mind, this rule, or Rule 21, existed when Rose was playing for and managing the Reds. And keep in mind, it's posted in every major league clubhouse. So there's no way he didn't know the rule, and yet he broke it anyway. Now, I was a kid back then, but what I know about his rule breaking is that Pete bet on games in which he had a direct involvement as a manager, and so that violated Rule 21. So in the end, his betting on his own team got him permanently banned from baseball. I think it was back in '89. He got a lifetime ban. And that's the caveat here. Lifetime. They gave him a lifetime ban. But he's dead now. Now, some folks say that maybe if he had apologized right away and shown some remorse instead of being stubborn, and he was kind of an ass for years and years, and he even lied about it for a long time. Now, they say that it's possible he might have been reinstated, but he didn't. I can't say if that makes any sense or would have changed anybody's mind, but it's pretty much water under the bridge now, and well, Pete is gone now. I say, let him in. I mean, he's dead now. He is dead. They said lifetime ban? Well, he's dead. I also say his gambling had no impact on any games, and no one can prove otherwise. And also, his accomplishments are just too great to shut him out of the Hall of Fame. And this is amazing stuff. These are amazing stats here. Just a few of his stats, and I'll run through these real quick for those of you who are not interested in sports. He was a 17 times All-Star. He was a 3-time World Series champ. He was the World Series MVP. He was NL Rookie of the Year. He won 2 Gold Gloves. He won 3 NL batting championships. He's in the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame. He is on the Major League Baseball All-Century team. He is the all-time hit leader for all of baseball. Now, baseball's been around 148 years or so. He is the number 1 hit leader. He has more singles than anyone ever. He has more games played than anyone ever. He has most career at-bats and most career plate appearances. He went up to bat almost 16,000 times. Nobody worked as hard. Nobody played as hard, and nobody loved the game more than Pete. Listen, we know that lots of today's players are betting. And with the ease of betting, I mean, think about it. All the gambling apps on your phone, the sports books at the casinos, it's really getting to be mainstream for tens of millions of people to gamble on sports now. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I mean, the Supreme Court opened this up not too long ago, and, well, here we are. Now, if you pay attention to baseball, you know that Major League Baseball has been cracking down recently on sports betting by baseball players. And they actually did suspend several players for a year for making legal sports bets on baseball. Now, none of these players were involved in any of the games that they bet on, and they are allowed to place legal bets, but not on baseball games. But I mean, let's be real. It's inevitable. They're going to keep doing it. It's a behavior that's really hard to control. Human nature is involved here, kids. Gambling is called a vice for a reason. Listen, Pete Rose wasn't on dope. He didn't kill anybody. He never beat up his significant other. He just screwed up. He got caught up in an addictive and, quite frankly, really fun behavior called gambling. He didn't hurt anybody, though. Anybody remember the Houston Astros sign stealing scandal? I'm old enough to remember it. The Astros organization used a camera, and they recorded and then banged on a trash can to let players know what signs were being sent by the other team when they were batting. That's called cheating. It's a big no-no against Major League Baseball rules. Oh, but good news. The Astros were severely punished. Oh, wait. No, they weren't. Actually, the Astros just paid a $5 million fine. So it's kind of about the money, wasn't it? And, oh yeah, that's right. Some high-level folks in the organization were suspended for a year. But you know what? No players were punished. And keep in mind, listen to this. The Astros baseball club is worth $2.25 billion. So it's a joke. Look, I'm not going to name any names here, but there are a lot of baseball players who did really terrible things both a long time ago and recently. We got racists, we got wife beaters, we got drunks. The list goes on and on. But Pete Rose is where we're going to draw the line? Seriously? That's ridiculous. Listen, I know he's not a choir boy, but it's not called the Hall of Character. It's called the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose should be inducted into the National Hall of Fame, plain and simple. Hey, Hall of Fame board members, vote to allow him in. You have the power to do it, and I believe you have the obligation. Let Pete in. So it turns out I'm special. And no, not that kind of special. Whiskey special. I got an email the other day from Lux Row, and it caught my eye, and I had to read it right away. If you don't mind, I'm going to share it with all you guys today. Now, the email header says, John, you're exclusively invited to our members only experience. Wow, that sounds amazing. I got to read this thing. It says you're invited to join an exclusive experience by Lux Row distillers before we open it up to the general public. And I thought, dang, now I'm not the general public. This is fantastic. It says, we're excited to extend a special invitation to join the Front Row, a new members-only experience unlike anything we've ever offered. I thought, well, this is great. It says you are among a select group, well, don't you like that, of Lux Row supporters who are thrilled to be invited to our membership program. And it gives me a list of things that are waiting for me, all this exclusive stuff. Exclusive behind-the-scene access, rare and limited releases, educational whiskey experiences, private events. It says this is a unique opportunity to be among the first to join the Front Row. We are excited to welcome you. Should you have any questions, please feel to reply, blah, 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 at frontrow.vip. Ooh, pretty fancy pants. So I clicked the link. I clicked the link to become a member, and this is where things start getting silly. It says the fall 2024 membership options. Now we've got the individual plan here and we've got the family plan. Now the individual plan is membership for one person. I guess that'd be me. You want to know how much it is? It's $475 4 times a year, every quarter, or $1,499 for the whole year. But good news, you get to attend 4 events a year. You get 4 rare bottles of whiskey, and I think those bottles include like the Lux Row Small Batch PX Sherry Finish, the Old Ezra 7, the Rye Single Barrel, which that's got to be good, the Blood Oath Packed 11, and then you get that Lux Row Distillers 12-year Double Barrel. But that's not all. It says for the low price of just $1,499 a year, you also get a single barrel pick experience. You get to skip the line on new releases. Okay. I mean, nobody wants to wait in line with the peasants, right? Imagine the dirty looks you're going to get as you walk past 250 folks that have been waiting 12 hours in the rain to get their bottle, and you just stroll on past them. Yeah, that'll feel awesome. Oh, there's more. You'll get to pour yourself a thieved sip from their single barrels when you visit. Now, I don't have any more details on that, but that sounds interesting, right? You get access to the Stone House during events for food and cocktails. I've been to the Stone House. It's cool. Access to virtual experiences and master classes, early alerts to new bottle releases, surprise benefits, blah, blah, blah. Now, the family plan. Now, this is for couples. This one's only $600 a quarter or $2,000 a year. Now, is this whiskey or is it a timeshare? Okay, so even if I was nutso about Lux Row's exclusive releases, and don't get me wrong, I love Lux Row. It's one of my favorites. Who's got the cash for all this? I live 5 hours from Lux Row, so what am I going to do? Turn to my wife and say, hey, babe, let's hop in the car and drive 5 hours to Kentucky for a quick tasting or to thieve whiskey from a barrel? I'm going to get divorce papers like right away at that point. And that's even before she finds the $2,000 membership fee on the credit card statement. And I'm praying she's at the office when she balances the checkbook that day, because $2,000 for whiskey, that's not going to be good for me. Now, all that being said, I can vouch for that 12-year double barrel. I've had it. I've managed to snag 2 of them over the past couple of years, and it's absolutely amazing. So they do have terrific whiskey, but $2,000 a year? I don't think so, kids. Now, maybe if I lived a lot closer to Lux Row, there in the Bardstown area, or anywhere closer than where I'm at now, it might be worth it. I don't know. But for now, I say thanks, but no thanks. Now, a little bit of recent whiskey news. And I want to talk about Dragon whiskey. What exactly is Dragon whiskey? Well, I'd never heard of it either, but it's whiskey without the E, by the way. It's a triple cask single malt whiskey from 10th Street Distillery. Say that fast 3 times. In San Jose, California. And they've nicknamed it Dragon, which is pretty badass. It was first released this year in 2024, in the year of the dragon. It's pot stilled. It's a non-chill filtered single malt, and it spends time aging in 3 different casks. First, they put it in an STR cask. Then it's finished in wine casks, followed by port casks. Okay, let's dig in here, kids. We're going to have a little lesson here about science. Now, what they've done here is quite cool. They say it was first aged in STR casks. And what they mean is STR, and that stands for scraped or shaved, toasted, and recharred. And what that means is it indicates that the cask has undergone that rejuvenation by having its staves shaved down and then recharred. They do this a lot now to reuse casks, and it's most often done with wine casks. And they just have to shave down like 3 to 5 millimeters of the wood. So it preserves the vast majority of the stave width, and then it's toasted, like I said, and recharred. Great way to reuse and kind of recycle these barrels. Now, Dragon comes in at 111.2 proof, and it's got a price tag of $128. They say the whiskey is full-bodied and intense on the palate, delivering bold flavors of toffee, dark chocolate, and roasted nuts, with layers of spice, charred wood, and a slight smokiness. balanced by sweeter notes of vanilla and honey, and that, to me, sounds amazing. Now, I honestly hate to put a lot of stock in these competitions, though. I really feel like for many reasons, these things are just kind of a circle jerk for the industry, but I gotta admit the sound of this dragon makes my mouth water. So, Swiss Miss is getting into the liquor business. Yeah, the hot cocoa we all grew up with, sipping on cold winter days. Well, guess what? They've officially grown up, and Swiss Miss has just teamed up with Hotel Tango Distillery, and they've created something that'll warm you up in more ways than one. They're calling it Schmallow Toasted Marshmallow Whiskey. So the Schmallow bottle, the label, it shows Swiss Miss sledding down a mountain with Schmallow's mascot, Fletcher the cat. Because nothing says serious whiskey business like a cat on a sled, right? Anyway, Swiss Miss Schmallow comes in at 750 milliliter bottle, and it clocks in at a mellow 40 proof. The tasting notes? Sweet chocolatey goodness with a marshmallow kick that'll take you back to campfire days, except this time, the fire's in your glass. Not gonna lie, folks, you'll probably find me standing in line in the sleet and snow to get this concoction. Probably be searching for it like it was Pappy 23 if my wife hears about it, so shh, it'll just be our little secret. So Costco is offering whiskey advent calendars again this year. They just revealed their 2024 whiskey advent calendar, and they're calling it the Whiskey Tour of the World. And if you've never heard of it, Costco's whiskey advent calendar is a very popular item every year around Christmas time. It includes 24 bottles of whiskey and whiskey with an E from 20 different countries, offering a variety of options from those regions. Now, I don't have a Costco membership, but if you do, you better get out there quick, because from what I understand, these things go quick. Now, I've done one similar to this before, and it really is cool opening that little cardboard door and pulling out that mini bottle. It's really kind of a super fun surprise, and it's a great way to get introduced to whiskeys you might never have considered picking up in a full-size bottle. Love that you can try that little, normally it's like a 50 ml bottle, and then you don't have to outlay all the cash. And we're all trying to save cash nowadays, so this one is one way to do it and enjoy the thing we all love so much. Okay, so I've been triggered. And I can't freaking believe I'm even going here. But, well, I guess I kind of owe it to you guys. Traveler Whiskey, made by Grammy Award-winning singer Chris Stapleton and Buffalo Trace, will be released in the UK this month. And this just kills me. Why, oh why, must we punish the Brits again? We already beat them in the war for independence. And, we've also got Disney World, so do we really need to give the Brits this particular whiskey? Do we want to start another war with them? I guess what's done is done. They're going to be getting shipments of this awful stuff this month in conjunction with Stapleton's tour in the UK and Ireland. It just blows my mind that when this Traveler stuff debuted here in the U.S. back in January, that it actually won gold at the American Whiskey Masters competition. And if you've ever wondered about those competitions, and I mentioned this earlier in the episode, should you believe them? Should you trust them? I think Traveler kind of tells you all you need to know about the Whiskey Masters. That's just my opinion. So, last week, I reviewed Fighting Cock from Heaven Hill, and I hope you got the info you needed to make an informed decision on whether or not to pick it up. Today, we continue our celebration of Cocktober by reviewing Chicken Cock Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Now, Bardstown Bourbon Company was tapped to provide distillate for the revival of Chicken Cock, and they continue to contract distillate for grain and barrel spirits out of Charleston. Now, a little about the brand itself, and it says right on the back of the bottle, a bit of history, so we don't have to dig too deep to learn about Chicken Cock, or at least their version of history. One of the oldest bourbon brands in the United States, Chicken Cock was established in 1856 in Paris, Kentucky. 7 decades later, it was a staple at Prohibition speakeasies, including the famous Cotton Club in Harlem, New York. Now, I also found some info that showed chicken cock was sold for medicinal purposes during Prohibition, but after Prohibition, producers across the country in general began flooding the market with like as much whiskey as they could produce. And so quality standards for a lot of whiskeys dropped, and unfortunately that included chicken cock as well. Eventually, the company that owned chicken cock took it off the shelves, and they let the trademark expire. I also found out that in its heyday during Prohibition, a pint of chicken cock would go for as much as $15. But during its demise, they sold it for $1.06 a pint, and that would have been in the early 50s. So, where in the heck did the name come from? Well, let's load up the Wayback Machine and take a little trip back 200 years ago. Chicken cock was a common name for a rooster in the southern United States, and, well, the word rooster hadn't come around yet, so cock it was. Chicken cock stood for defiance and bravery. The story goes that during the War of 1812, when British ships were attacking American ships on Lake Champlain, and according to the legend, a cannonball hit a chicken coop that was on the USS Saratoga. A rooster flew out onto the ship's railing, and the bird started crowing loudly, and this supposedly inspired the American sailors to keep fighting. So there's that little tidbit of history for you. All right, whiskey freaks, let's get to the fun part now. My review of Chicken Cock Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Now, like I said before, it's made by Bardstown Bourbon Company, and to my knowledge, they've never delivered anything that wasn't top-notch. I've had several of their offerings, and they've always been impressive, so I'd expect nothing less here, but we're going to see. So Chicken Cock Kentucky Bourbon. I got it for $54.99 at the bottle shop here in town. It's close to my house, and the prices are usually right in line with MSRP. The dude that owns the place is super cool, so I like to frequent there as often as I can. The proof of this one is 90. There's no age statement, but it's at least 4 years old. Now, onto the bottle. I always mention the bottle shape and style. It's one cool looking bottle. It harkens back to Prohibition days with the design. In fact, it's bottled in a replica of the Prohibition era chicken cock bottle. It's very cool, but yet it's very hard for me to describe. Just trust me, it's got a cool factor. Go to Facebook or Instagram, Blind Tasting Podcast. You'll see it for yourself. I think you'll agree it's super unique. The mash bill is 70 corn, 21 rye, and 9 malted barley. So I guess it's technically a high rye bourbon. The color, I say it's something like a mahogany. It's really got a beautiful color to it. Of course, the color is probably irrelevant, especially if you're trusting me on that piece of the puzzle, but it sometimes gives you an idea of the breadth of flavors you're about to receive in your mouth. In my opinion, the darker the hue of the whiskey, the deeper the flavors. Now, it's not always true, but it is sometimes, and it's worth noting, and I will every time. Today, I'm tasting with a plain old Glencairn glass, and one of these days I'm going to talk about the history of Glencairns, but not today. I want to get into this chicken cock. Let me crack this open. I've already taken the plastic off. I'm going to pop the cork. It's a nice little cork. So I'm going to give it a little bit of nosing. No alcohol in the nose, and that's a good start. Smells very sweet. I'm getting notes of vanilla and caramel. That's typical. Getting some light fruits, maybe. It's very inviting. I'm going to take a sip. So I'm getting a bit of oak right away. Now, it fades to kind of a creamy vanilla caramel. And that light fruit I got on the nose it's most definitely pear. Yes, I say pear. Very sweet, very pleasant. I'm loving this so far. Let me take one more sip. That creamy vanilla and caramel continues on the finish. That pear is solidly hanging around. You're getting a bit of oakiness as well, but it's not much. And the 90 proof brings you just the exact amount of heat that 90 proof should bring you. So what's the verdict? I'll have the answer right after the money spot. Are you looking to update your bar or man cave with some great photographs or wall art? Head over to Etsy at famousdocs.etsy.com and pick up some fantastic prohibition, bourbon, whiskey, and gangster-related photographs and art. And if you purchase 4 or more items, you'll get 20% off your entire order for a limited time. That's famousdocs.etsy.com. famousdocs.etsy.com. Now, as you know, on the Blind Tasting Podcast, we have 3 verdict options. Are we going to keep it, collect it, or cull it? Now, keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar. This stuff is good for a pour anytime, but there's really no need to stock up since it's always available. Collect it. Grab another bottle or 2 since you find it so darn delicious, or it just may not be easy to obtain. And lastly, cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Chic straight bourbon whiskey, I say keep it. What comes to mind for me is quality, consistency, delicious. It's really the best way I can describe this stuff. I expected this from Bardstown Bourbon Company, and well, they delivered. If you want an easy drinker with all the flavors you expect from bourbon whiskey and a fruitiness that makes it a real option for non-bourbon drinkers, I think this is a solid choice. It's just approachable. Now, I'm not sure if you remember, but you can go back and listen to my review of Starlight Carl T. Huber bourbon whiskey. It was a 92 proofer that performed exactly like this whiskey, in my opinion, and it provided similar tasting notes. That pear was very distinct, if I remember correctly, and I'm seeing it here with Chic as well. Really good stuff. And the price around $54 is reasonable. The bottle sitting on your shelf will kind of make you look like a baller. That's cool. It's got a funny name, but it does have a cool history. And even better, it's really great tasting whiskey. I'd definitely grab a bottle of Chic before this brand completely blows up. Last but not least, I got to give a shout out to the farmers, distillery production guys and gals, the warehouse workers, the bottlers, and the truck drivers. They all make it happen. So cheers to all of them. Well, that's all I got for today, Whiskey Freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your #1 attitudinal bourbon destination.